Back now on The Pulse, looking at all things people, power, and politics. Here to talk about a number of political topics, former Democratic State Representative Leslie Love and Troy Mayor Ethan Baker, two regulars on The Pulse. We thank you both for joining us here tonight.
Thank you.
I want to begin by talking about the latest developments across the pond, as they say. Leslie, your thoughts on Prince Andrew, the brother of King Charles, arrested. Obviously, you know, he's still defending himself, but these ties to Epstein, do you think this investigation and these types of arrests come closer to our side of things here? Oh,
absolutely. And I think how the King Charles has handled that situation is to really be in full disclosure. Like, I'm not providing shelter for you. If you're involved, you have to pay the consequences. And I think how that ripples across on this side of the pond is that we expect that type of leadership here. So no covering up and giving people passes.
One thing we may have in common with our colonial past is that protectionism that we have around people who are of power. I mean, the fact that this is the first time we've seen an arrest like this in the royal family in 400 years says a lot. I think America is much more progressive in terms of being able to say, it doesn't matter, you're not above the law. But do you believe there's a little bit of that protection, Mayor Ethan Baker, that's still happening here on this side of the pond?
I think a little bit. I think part of the issue is there's a lot of people, a lot of big names in the United States that are in those Epstein files in one way or another, and so there's a lot of question as to, you know, how much protection can you give or should we give? I think the other thing that's really important to note here, though, and you mentioned it earlier, is that, you know, I almost said Prince Andrew. He's not a prince anymore, but Andrew, just because he was arrested in the UK doesn't mean he was charged with anything. Basically, that just means they're investigating him, which they've been doing. They've done plenty of investigations over here in the United States to people that have shown up on that list. Charges haven't come from them as expected, and I don't know that any will be over the seas. But to your point, Leslie, I think it's really interesting to see King Charles kind of take a modern approach to all this and say, hey, he's my brother. He was part of our royal family. He doesn't have his royal titles anymore, but the law's going to play out, and we've got to do what we've got to do.
But perhaps the reason we haven't seen the types of interest in arrests here in the United States is because we simply haven't seen all of the files yet. I mean, the fact that we've only seen 1% to 2% of the files released, and of that, so much of it redacted. They claim that it's to protect victims. Leslie Love, do you believe the AG's office that is the heavy redaction is simply to protect victims, or do you believe they're protecting people in power?
I think it's all of the above. You can do two things at once, can be true, and that it's a little bit of that, but a lot of who financially is involved in that. It's not just the celebrities that we hear about. It's the unknown people who are billionaires and millionaires who really move industry, whose names could be a part of that, who we never want to expose, because then it collapses a system of support, and it's all politics. It's all related in that way.
Well, it's politics, and it's also Hollywood, and it's a lot of other pieces and parts of power plays that are happening both in Washington and LA. And I find it noteworthy to remember that it was so much of the Democratic elite that were into Hollywood and were in the Epstein files, friends with Epstein. You have Bill Clinton, you have other people who have visited the island, movie stars, politicians. Right. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. Can this country get past that point in this particular situation? And understand, this has nothing to do. Trump and Clinton are both in the files, though no wrongdoing that they claim they did. But that's still the truth that both of them are in.
Right, and let's get past the celebrity, the whole sensationalizing of whose name is listed, and to the issue of abuse. Sexual abuse of young people, men or women, deprived folks who are, because you have wealth and you have access, you seem to be untouchable. Not only with Epstein, but we've seen it with other celebrity men who behave in this way where they can do anything with abandon. And so we really need to check this culture and this behavior that allows for predators to exist in this kind of manner.
And we've seen the allegations of predatory behavior both on the left and the right when it comes to power. This is a really disgusting problem, and one that needs to be addressed. And that brings me to my next question. Mayor Baker, President Biden, under his DOJ, not one file was released. President Obama, not one file released. And President Trump, the first time he was in office, not one file released. Right. What do you make of that?
Well, I think they're only released now because of the fact that Congress said, some vocal Congress members got involved and said, hey, we want these files released. They got a bill passed that did it, and Trump had no choice but to sign it and do it. I think part of that is a little bit what Leslie's talking about, is that there's protectionism for the elite, whether they are industry moguls in entertainment or other aspects of it.
So contributors to perhaps political campaigns?
Well, yeah,
is that the threat?
You look at someone, I'm going to take the politics. I'm going to take Bill Clinton. I'm going to take Donald Trump out of it for a second, which is hard to do politically. But Bill Gates is somebody who's been revered in this world for all the good works he's done with all of his money. And here, he shows up in those files quite a bit. It's really jarring for people to see that kind of thing and have really conflicting behaviors. But even deeper than that, I think one of the issues that you talk about is there are two forms of criminal justice in this country. We know that, and the wealthy, rich elite, often men, tend to get away with things that others wouldn't, and that is a sad fact. And you see people try really hard to overcome some of that with legislation and such, but we consistently run up against that. So until that's addressed, we're always going to face it.
It's interesting because you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, you have Lauren Boebert, and you have other Republicans who are considered MAGA Republicans, who now will probably be and have been just berated by so much on the MAGA right because they came out against the president to say we need to hear more. Do you give credit to these ladies like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who came out courageously against the president?
No. Do you give credit for just being a decent human being, just to do the right thing? That's what you're supposed to do. My mother used to say, you don't get a girl because you did the dishes. You dirty them, you should wash them.
Sure.
You don't get,
Makes sense.
So like we're rewarding people for just doing what you're supposed to do. No, but I am glad to see that her courage in the face of the mega wall that exists to do that, because a lot of Republicans will not do their check and balance against the president.
And perhaps that provides a little bit of fuel for others out there on both sides of the political aisle who say, you know what, there is life after politics, and it's standing up for the right thing is a good thing to do, right, Ethan?
Well, yeah, and I think it's really sad that we are in a place where the bar is so low that somebody does something that's human or on the right level, and that's, let's applaud and make sure we call it out. That tells me that we're not getting the right kind of leaders in elective office. That's something we need to face bigger than all these other problems, because if we can address that and get the right people into office, society's going to be better. We're going to do better.
I want to talk about ICE here because we have a detention center that's opening in Romulus. We have in Southfield, right down the road from here, an administrative building. Leslie, your thoughts on what we're looking at in the next 6 months, a year here?
I think a lot of more anxiousness and a shift in our culture. You hear all the time now that students are coming to school less and less. There's concern. We do have an immigrant population, a large immigrant population in metropolitan Detroit. We already have a problem with attendance in our schools, so what does this do in addition to that? And so there's just reverberating effects about how this trickles down into community and everyday living.
I want to make this point before I ask this question to Mayor Baker. I'm not talking about violent criminals who hurt, kill, rape people. All of them, everyone agrees, should be out of here. No problem agreeing on that. But what about tax-paying citizens, not citizens, but non-citizens who are tax-paying, contributing members to society but are here undocumented? How do you handle that situation?
Well, I think that's the divide. There are certainly people who are agreed, like what you just said. If they're violent criminals, deport them, get them out of here right away. I think Obama did a lot of that. I think Trump previously did. Biden, people deport those violent criminals. The question then becomes, you have that divide between people who think you're here illegally, that makes you a criminal that should be deported, and people who are willing to say, well, maybe you're contributing to society a little bit in a way that should be maybe rewarded or given an option to find a way to citizenship.
Isn't President Trump saying that? In some circles, we've heard him actually say, if you're working in the hospitality industry or as a farmer, we should look at that, is what he said?
I think there's an economic aspect to that he focuses on quite a bit. He's really drawn into the economics of things, and when he sees that hospitality sector being affected, and other sectors will as well, then that is going to be something. Agriculture, of course. I mean, those are the things that are going to all of a sudden get his attention.
Right, and this is a PR problem, too. So we don't want to see the emergency ER nurse murdered. We don't want to see the woman murdered. We want to see you go in and get those bad guys, the folks who are dealing with fentanyl and drugs. Sure. We haven't seen any of that. And so that's the problem, too. It's like, American citizens are being pulled over or coming over, not just people who are in the process of becoming citizens, but where are the real bad guys? Show us that.
We have, and perhaps they need to do a better job with the PR, as you say, because there have been arrests that I've actually talked with our crew here of really really bad people on the streets all across America. The question is, what's the percentage? What are we looking at here? It's something we'll be watching. Leslie Love,
Yes.
always good to see you. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Mayor Ethan Baker, thanks for your time here tonight on The Pulse.
Sure thing.
All right.
Social media on trial tonight. We're talking with social media expert Ethan Lloyd. Is Facebook, Instagram, is it addictive? What does this guy, Mark Zuckerberg, have to say about it? We have an expert coming up next. You're watching The Pulse.